We are the dumbest humans ever. You think you're smart? Really? Then let me ask you something. When was the last time you remembered a phone number without checking your phone? Or the last time you finished an entire book without stopping every few minutes to check a notification? Can't remember? Don't worry. Most people can't. Now here's another question. When was the last time you sat alone with your own thoughts without grabbing your phone? A minute? 5 minutes? 10? It's harder than it sounds, isn't it? But here's the crazy part. What if I told you we're becoming the dumbest humans in generations? Sounds impossible. I mean, we have smartphones. We have the internet. We have AI that can answer almost any question in seconds. So we should be smarter than ever, right? That's exactly what everyone believed. For years, people thought every new generation was getting smarter than the last. It happened again, and again, and again. Then something strange happened. The trend stopped. And before anyone really noticed, it started going the other way. The scary part isn't that it happened. The scary part is that it happened so slowly. Almost nobody realized it. So what changed? Did humans suddenly become lazy? Did our brains somehow stop working? Or is there something hiding in plain sight that's changing the way we think every single day? By the end of this video, you'll understand why researchers are asking these questions, why your brain may not be working the way it used to, and why the biggest reason might be something you've already used today. The big twist. So, what happened? How did humans go from getting smarter every generation to suddenly going backwards? At first, people came up with all kinds of answers. Some blamed schools. Others blamed parents. Some even said, kids today are just lazy. But the more researchers looked into it, the less those answers made sense. Because the same thing was happening in different countries, different cultures, different schools, different families. It was showing up almost everywhere. And that's when they realized something. Maybe the problem wasn't who we are. Maybe the problem is the world we're living in. Think about it. Your grandparents had to remember phone numbers. They had to read maps. If they wanted an answer, they couldn't just pull a phone out of their pocket. Their brains had to do the work. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors didn't have search engines, maps, or devices telling them what to do. A hunter had to remember the landscape. They had to recognize animal tracks. They had to remember which plants were safe to eat. They had to survive using nothing but their own memory and instincts. Their world was harder than ours, but their brains were constantly being trained. Now think about your day. Your phone remembers everything. It tells you where to go. It reminds you of birthdays. It finishes your sentences. It even answers your questions before you have time to think. Sounds convenient. But here's the question nobody asks. If something else does all the thinking for you, what happens to your brain? And that's where this story gets really interesting. Because researchers believe this is only one piece of a much bigger puzzle. The next reason might be the biggest one of all. And chances are, you're doing it right now. Your brain doesn't have to work anymore. Let me ask you another question. How many phone numbers did you know by heart when you were a kid? 5, 10, maybe even 20? Now, how many do you know today? Probably 1, maybe none. And that's not because your memory suddenly got worse. It's because you don't need it anymore. Your phone remembers everything for you. Need directions? GPS. Need someone's birthday? Your calendar. Need an answer? Google. Need to write an email? AI. Little by little, you've stopped asking your brain to do the work. Now, don't get me wrong. Technology isn't the enemy. It has made our lives easier in ways we couldn't imagine 20 years ago. But here's the problem. Your brain works a lot like a muscle. The less you use it. For most of human history, the brain was our greatest survival tool. Early humans didn't survive because they were the strongest animals on Earth. They survived because they could think, adapt, remember, and solve problems. A mistake in the wild could mean the difference between life and death. Today, most of our mistakes just mean losing a few minutes or getting the wrong answer online. The challenge that once trained our brains has slowly disappeared. The weaker it becomes. Think about it. If you stopped walking for a year, would your legs stay strong? Of course not. So why would your brain be any different? Every time your phone remembers something for you, that's one less thing your brain has to remember. Every time GPS tells you where to go, that's one less chance for your brain to learn the route. Every time AI gives you the answer, that's one less time you have to think for yourself. None of these moments seem important, but together day after day, year after year, they start to add up. And here's what's really scary. This isn't even the biggest reason, because there's something else that's changing your brain. Something millions of people do for hours every single day, without realizing what it's doing to them. The real problem. Here's a little challenge. Don't touch your phone for the next 10 minutes. No scrolling. No messages. No videos. No music. Nothing. Sounds easy, right? Then why do most people fail? Why do we keep reaching for our phones? Even when nobody texted us. Even when there's nothing new to see. Have you ever unlocked your phone, opened one app, then another, and suddenly, 20 minutes disappeared? You don't even remember why you picked it up in the first place. That isn't normal, and you're definitely not the only one. Millions of people do the exact same thing. Every single day, your brain is getting used to something. A new video every few seconds. And this is something completely new in human history. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain evolved in a world where attention was valuable. Our ancestors had to sit quietly, observe their surroundings, and wait. They had patience because survival required it. But now, our brains are surrounded by endless distractions that our ancestors never experienced. A brain built for the slow rhythm of nature is now living inside a world that changes every few seconds. A new notification, a new message, a new sound, a new distraction, over and over and over again. Now think about the last time you sat down to read something difficult. Maybe a book, maybe homework, maybe even an article. How long did it take before you wanted to check your phone? 5 minutes? 3, maybe less. See, your brain isn't becoming bad at thinking. It's being trained to expect something new every few seconds. And when nothing exciting happens, it gets bored, fast. That's why it's becoming harder to focus, harder to finish things, harder to sit with one problem long enough to solve it. And here's the scary part. Someone is making billions of dollars from keeping your brain exactly like this. Because the longer you keep scrolling, the more money they make. But that's still not the biggest reason. The next part is something almost nobody talks about. And once you hear it, you'll never look at your phone the same way again. The biggest problem. But here's the truth. Your phone isn't the real problem. AI isn't the real problem. The internet isn't the real problem. They're just tools. The real problem is that we've started depending on them for almost everything. Think about it. When you can't remember something, you don't try to remember. You search for it. When you have to solve a problem, you don't stop and think. You ask AI. When you don't know where you're going, you don't figure it out. You follow the blue line on a map. Little by little, we've stopped trusting our own brains. And that's a dangerous habit. Because the human brain gets stronger by solving problems. This is why some researchers compare modern life with a strange experiment. For millions of years, humans trained their brains through challenges. Finding food, navigating unfamiliar places, remembering important information, learning from mistakes. Now, many of those tasks are handled instantly by technology. The question isn't whether technology makes life easier. It does. The question is whether we are losing the mental skills that made humans unique in the first place. By making mistakes, by remembering, by thinking, not by letting something else do it for us. Imagine going to the gym every day, but instead of lifting the weights, you ask someone else to lift them for you. Would you get stronger? Of course not. Your brain works the same way. Every shortcut saves you a few seconds. But over time, those shortcuts can cost you something much bigger. The ability to think deeply, to stay focused, to solve problems on your own. And maybe that's why so many people today feel distracted, forgetful, and mentally exhausted. Not because they're stupid, but because their brains are doing less of the work than ever before. Here's the good news. This story doesn't have to end that way. Your brain isn't broken. Because the same thing that made humans survive for thousands of generations still exists inside us. The ability to learn. The ability to adapt. The ability to improve. Our ancestors didn't become intelligent because life was easy. They became intelligent because life challenged them. And maybe the solution isn't going back to the past. Maybe it's bringing some of those challenges back into our modern lives. So the next time someone asks, are humans getting dumber? Maybe that's the wrong question. The real question is, what are you doing today to make sure you don't become part of the trend? If this video made you stop and think, share it with someone who spends more time looking at a screen than looking at the real world. And if you want more videos that make you question the things everyone else accepts, hit subscribe.
You think you have what it takes? Let's see your best shot.